Hello everyone, please press subscribe, press follow, press the bell so you don't miss any new clips. The Divine Nine Dragon Cauldron. Author by Heavenly Overlord. Translator by NYOIBO Studio. Audio novels by Novelist. The Divine Nine Dragon Cauldron. Chapter 111, Forever Buried in the Sea. Blood hands smeared. As a pirate, I've cultivated water-based cultivation techniques for years and I'm proficient in water battles. By choosing to enter the water, you've chosen your own doom. Dragon of the Four Seas. Blood hands bellowed. After diving into the water, Blood hands swam with both his legs intersecting and moving like a weaving dragon's tail, churning the sea. Crash. Crashing waves surrounded Blood hands. The torrential current surged violently. His speed soared. He was even faster than he had been in the air. Choosing to fight in the water was your biggest mistake. Blood hand's speed was astounding. He overtook Su Yu in an instant. Aha! He attacked with his palm, sweeping along a massive current and bombarding Su Yu. Crack! Just as he attacked, Blood hand's face morphed in shock. The sea water behind Su Yu had unexpectedly solidified into an iceberg. Blood hands was caught off guard and his palm struck the iceberg like it was striking an impenetrable steel wall. His fingers shattered. The power from the rebound force severely jolted his blood circulation and internal organs. He violently spurted a mouthful of fresh blood and his body flew several feet backward. It's the divine artifact of the Divine Ice Ancient Kingdom. You can actually use it. Blood hands was horrified. He'd immediately recognized the divine artifact. Without Blood hands knowing, Su Yu had turned around while he was fleeing and slipped on the divine ice ring. The waves now looked particularly chilly silhouetted against Su Yu's cold form. With a faint smile teasing the corners of his mouth, he was as cold and cruel as the sea. Water is my world. From the moment you choose to enter the sea, you were doomed. Su Yu smiled, his expression calm and confident. His flowing silver hair refracted the faint silvery light from the clear seawater. His purple clothes drifted with the current, giving him a heroic appearance. Blood hands felt like he was looking at a divine ice king. He needed to flee. With divine ice threads, Su Yu practically had all the power in the Divine Ice Ancient Kingdom. The waters belonged to the Divine Ice World, and Su Yu was the Divine Ice King. Crack! Crack! Blood hands frantically retreated, about to rush out of the water surface as he glimpsed a strand of transparent, sparkling thread which had drifted with the waves and brushed past him. No, not just one strand, it was 1,000 strands. These threads, dense and thick, surrounded him like a vast net. The threads and seawater blended together, making them indistinguishable from one another. He hadn't expected Su Yu to set a trap. Now, he was unexpectedly caught in Su Yu's vast net. Worldly ice seal. As Su Yu's silver hair flowed and his purple clothes danced, he looked like an ancient divine king declaring the end of the world. Crack. The seawater turned ice cold and froze. Ah! Blood hands roared as all the surrounding threads were injected with the ice-cold air. Together with the sea water, he was sealed in the frozen world. His face, frozen with fear, was sealed within the iceberg. From far away, it only looked like an iceberg had floated up from the seabed with a man frozen inside. But a faint layer of spiritual energy still circulated around the body of the frozen man. He was not dead. Swish! Su Yu dashed out of the sea and darted into the air. With his eyes flashing, Su Yu's palms clenched as he shouted, "Break!" Crash! The countless strands of the divine ice threads hauled the gigantic iceberg out of the water with a loud burst. They spiked into the iceberg strand by strand and tightened together like a net under the force from Su Yu's hand. Crack! The divine ice threads carved through the iceberg from inside out. Fear began to deeply form in Blood hand's eye. Su Yu was the last thing he would ever see. Pop! Pop! The iceberg shattered into countless small shards and turned into crystal dust, along with Blood hand's corpse. Swish! Su Yu retrieved his jade token using the divine ice threads. And so, Generation's first level peak Holy King was thus frozen and destroyed. Su Yu's ability was, at most, equivalent to a first-level upper-tier Holy King. However, with the help of the Divine Ice Ancient Kingdom's divine artifact, here at the sea, he was like a fish in water. He then counted the Jade tokens, 10 tokens of half-Holy Kings, a total of 10 points. 5 tokens of first-level lower-tier Holy King, a total of 50 points. 1 token of first-level upper-tier Holy King, a total of 20 points. 1 token of first-level peak Holy King, a total of 30 points. A total score of 110 points. He had already exceeded the stipulated 100 points. Su Yu could not only enter the inner sanctum, but he also could obtain a rare and precious medium-grade marrow-cleansing elixir. Furthermore, he could seek the guidance of an esteemed elder. Master Li had previously said that a century ago, Li Guang was lucky to have escaped death because the second elder had interceded. Su Yu could use this opportunity to meet with the second elder. If he clearly explained the actual situation, the second elder should be able to take him under her wing. He may finally gain some footing in the Lixian faction. With a delighted heart, Su Yu carefully put the jade token away. Hee, you have a pretty good bounty. A soft chuckle gently sounded near his ear. Boom. Su Yu, as if struck by lightning, stiffened. The palms of his hands shook and he nearly dropped the jade pendants. To his surprise, he was unaware that someone had snuck up behind him. He looked back and saw a 20-year-old young man with a mocking expression, standing with his hands behind his back. He looked like he was full of vigor and betrayed no emotions, just an ordinary man. But a dreadful feeling made Su Yu shudder, and it surrounded him like an enormous shadow. Su Yu got the feeling that this person could obliterate him with one finger. It was the Sea Wolves pirate chief. Rumor had it that he was a powerful second-level Holy King. Every time a Holy King advanced to another rank, his ability would greatly increase by another level. The ability of a second-level Holy King far surpassed that of a first-level Holy King. Why aren't you killing me? Su Yu softly muttered. Although he was the pirate chief, his face held no distinctive pirate-like savagery. Instead, he laughed breezily. I can't be compared to those filthy pirates. Why would he belittle his own subordinates? With a close-lipped smile, the pirate chief smiled. Your Lixian faction released a few talents in these territorial waters. Are you trying to draw me out like luring a snake out of its hole? It's a pity. You lost your portable tracking jade pendant. It will be hard for the people from the Lixian faction to track down your position. It's funny, they thought of Wu Pangyun as the most outstanding disciple and put their focus on secretly monitoring his situation. But little did they know, the real talent was not him, but you. The pirate chief's face showed deep admiration. Examining Su Yu, the pirate chief continued to smile. Only 14 years old and you could comprehend legacy-level cultivation technique. Furthermore, you're resourceful, courageous, and already a half-Holy King. Plus, you exterminated a first-level peak Holy King. It's truly a pity for such a talent to be wrongly placed in the Lixian faction. Su Yu was startled. What do you exactly mean? The pirate chief smiled. I only recaptured the small crew of Sea Wolves pirates while I was passing through. Being a pirate chief was just a cover for my identity. My true identity is a silver-robed guard of the Empire of Darkness. Being stationed at the territorial waters near the Lixian faction, my assignment for the Empire of Darkness is to seek outstanding disciples and to bring them back with me to the Empire of Darkness. Of course, any Lixian faction's disciples with potential also fall within my scope. The Lixian faction has become aware of my existence. Unfortunately, unable to determine my position, they used your group of disciples with dispensable skills to lure me out and left you marooned in my active territory. Then, they dispatched an expert to secretly track the key target, Wu Pangyun. If I had shown up, they would have taken Wu Pangyun away and the expert, hidden in the dark, would have appeared to subdue me. Su Yu was relieved to hear that this was the case. According to Yunyan, the faction had concealed a secret purpose for this trip's recruitment assessment. The real talent had long been protected by the Lixian faction in advance. The useful, but not too precious disciples, like Wu Pangyun and Su Yu, were treated as bait to lure the pirate chief, who had forcibly taken Lixian faction disciples, out. Fortunately, I am not keen on Wu Pangyun. But you, I've observed you for a long time. You're the true talent. Your powerful insight, mind, and nature are the best. The pirate chief thought very highly of Su Yu. Follow me, the Empire of Darkness is your oyster. Su Yu looked solemn. What if I say no? Xianna and Chia Jingyu were both at the Lixian faction. He was about to reunite with them. How could he leave? The pirate chief was still smiling. Considering you may possibly become my junior brother, I'll give you two choices. The first choice is immediate death. If the Empire of Darkness can't have you, then no one else can either. The second choice is, I'll give you a chance to escape. If you can escape from my hands in half a day, then I'll take the blame for your escape. Swish. Su Yu was unusually decisive. Without another word, he broke free into the sky and fled. The pirate chief was slightly stumped, but his smile deepened. Very well, he acted decisively. After a while, Su Yu had used up much of his vital energy. He'd flown over 100 miles in an escape. In 2 more hours, he managed 500 more. Your speed is a little slow. Hee hee. A soft chuckle came from in front of Su Yu. It was the pirate chief, standing with his hands behind his back among the clouds and mist. With a smile on his face, he looked at ease, seemingly waiting for Su Yu. He was so fast. Su Yu's heart was pounding. Whoosh. Su Yu immediately changed direction and flew away without stopping. At the summit of an island ahead, the pirate chief was seen leisurely sitting cross-legged and holding a flask of wine. He slowly sipped as Su Yu approached. You must cultivate some movement techniques. Su Yu's movement technique, the floating light shadow, had become obsolete. He would never escape this man. He either had to die or join the unfathomable and mysterious Empire of Darkness. He would soon finally reunite with Xianna and Chia Jingyu. How could he part with them again? Gnashing his teeth, Su Yu quickly fled. Finally, an hour later, Su Yu had used up all his time. Half a day had passed and he had failed to escape. In the white clouds above Su Yu's head, the pirate chief had a look of mock pity. Looks like you must make a choice, either die or come with me. There was a look of struggle in Su Yu's eyes. It was all or nothing. Pop. Su Yu jumped into the sea. Why are you resisting? It's such a pity that you chose death. The pirate chief's smiling face gradually hardened. Looking down at the undulating waves, the corners of his mouth revealed his cold rumination. Want to engage me in a naval battle? Unfortunately, your grasp of the divine artifact of the divine ice ancient kingdom is only superficial. Since you've already had it for half a month, you must have had enough fun with it. It's time to take it back. I'll take that along with your life. Boom. With an icy expression, the pirate chief dived into the sea. Su Yu's blurry figure could be seen underwater. Smiling indifferently, the pirate chief flexed his fingers and a frightening spiritual energy was channeled into a current of air. It funneled through the seawater like a sharp arrow shooting across time and space. Su Yu was staring into the eyes of death. This one attack was enough to cause Su Yu's life to flash before his eyes. Worldly ice seal, Su Yu yelled. The divine ice threads that he had buried underneath the seabed simultaneously radiated a terrible cold air. Crack. The sea, including the pirate chief in it, was frozen into a gigantic iceberg in a flash. Even though it was the same technique as the Pirate King had seen before, it would still be difficult for him to defend himself so long as he was unable to see the icy strands. Yet, Su Yu felt his heart clench as he watched a fire grow from within the ice. It was like a fiery red flower gently blooming in the cold ice. A man on fire, wearing a contemptuous smile on his lips, stood with his hands behind his back. The fire actually managed to stay like under such cold, watery conditions. A legacy-level cultivation technique. Su Yu sucked in a breath of cold air. The pirate chief smiled with disdain. I warned you earlier, don't compare me to those filthy pirates. You're not the only one who knows a legacy-level cultivation technique. Destroy! The pirate chief roared, his entire body blazed, and a loud rumble burst out in all directions. Crack! Boom! The iceberg was shattered with a loud crack. Countless shards of ice split and splashed in all directions. Plop! Momentarily distracted, Su Yu was struck in the chest by a shard of broken ice. It was like someone had taken a hammer and ruthlessly hammered him in the chest, causing him to cough up blood. At this time the pirate chief, with his entire body engulfed in water-resistant flames, leisurely strolled over. Su Yu's eyes were lit up with an unyielding raging fire which slightly startled the pirate chief. Before you die, can you tell me why you are being so obstinate? Since you're a new disciple of the Lixian faction, you shouldn't be so loyal. What's the difference in coming with me to the Empire of Darkness? The pirate chief asked evenly. Under Su Yu's fluttering silver hair, his pair of deep eyes were warm, because the Lixian faction has the two most crucial people in my life. One is my betrothed, whom I have been separated from to this day. I owe her a lifetime of protection. And the other is my esteemed confidant. I owe her a lifetime of kindness. I must see him no matter what. Even if we were separated by thousands of miles of vast seas, even if we were parted by thousands of mountains, even if I have to fight nature itself, I have to go to them. Su Yu looked firm. The pirate chief was slightly at a loss while he listened to his vivid words. He unexpectedly felt that presently, even though Su Yu's ability was poor, he looked dazzling. After a while, he coldly asked one question: even if you were to die? Su Yu nodded. Even deep at sea, his eyes were bright and eye-catching, like deep-sea pearls. Yes. I have no regrets. If he could not accompany Xianna in this life, if he was unable to repay Chia Jingyu's kindness, then there was no point in living. They were the most important women in Su Yu's life. Therefore, I, Su Yu, cannot go with you. But I also can't die here. A wisp of his silver hair flew across Su Yu's forehead. Though it blocked his resolute expression, it could not obstruct the violet glint in his eyes. Extending his two fingers, Su Yu slowly pointed them towards his eyes and removed two pieces of thin membrane. A pair of tightly shut eyes slowly opened. A majestic and mysterious violet light radiated everywhere and illuminated the deep sea. It was as if time and space had stopped, and heaven and earth stood still. Only Su Yu, with his fluttering purple clothes, flowing silver hair, and his pair of noble, mysterious eyes, could step across time and space. Su Yu was like a celestial king, sending out a desolate sigh from the depths of time and space. You will forever be buried in the sea. The Divine Nine-Dragon Cauldron. Chapter 112. The Huge Reward. Seal of Time. The violet ray from Su Yu's eyes surged and time was frozen. An incorporeal purple dragon wove around the pirate chief's physical body. The pirate chief's thoughts were still swirling around in his head, but his physical body was trapped in the space-time freeze frame. Worldly Ice Seal. The divine ice threads filled the sky and sealed the pirate chief inside the iceberg once again. Unable to move his body, he could not use his legacy-level cultivation technique. Aha! Countless strands of the divine ice threads tightened like a vast net as they sliced through the ice. Crackle! Just as they were about to slice into the pirate king, however, they were stopped. The clothing on his body looked ordinary, but it was magical clothing with armored qualities. Swish! Just as the seal of time wore off, the pirate chief's body was freed. He had seen everything. His jokey, smiling expression vanished like smoke in the thin air and was replaced by a deep gloom. Boy, you're making me mad. You used a paltry trick to try to kill me. The pirate chief snarled. Boom. The terrifying spiritual energy that was all over the pirate chief's body transformed into flames that expelled the cold. He then shook his body from head to toe and flicked away the countless divine ice threads. Pow! The shake traveled across the threads to Su Yu, who was struck. Blood dribbled from his lips. In the presence of an absolute gap between our abilities, you're unable to do anything to me. In the name of the Empire of Darkness, I'll grant you the doom of darkness. The pirate chief extended his finger to shoot out a powerful tongue of raging flame. However, as Suyu was wiping away the blood from the corners of his mouth, he smiled expectantly. You finally came. I waited for you for so long. Who are you waiting for? The pirate chief looked puzzled, freezing his attack. Don't tell me, as you chased me, didn't you realize where we were headed? Suyu returned his question with a question of his own. The pirate chief looked around him. Suddenly he glanced sideways into the seawater behind him and saw that there was an ice palace. There was a vague outline of a city with a radius of 10 miles. Dim light refracted from the ice crystals. It was a charming mirage, like a bright pearl adorning the dark seabed. Divine, ice, ancient, kingdom, the pirate chief yelled. Shaking all over, the pirate chief's alarm and fury mingled together. You deliberately wanted to fight here, and you released the divine ice ring, just so that you could attract the sea beast. Yes, and it has already arrived. Suyu smiled indifferently. Swish. Several rays of black light silently shot out of the seabed. Suyu had already prepared for this attack. Whoosh. In the nick of time, he managed to dodge in a flurry. The pirate chief was further away and did not have Suyu's good fortune. Amidst his alarm and fury, he had not been on guard. Boom. Ah. With a mournful scream, the pirate chief's magical clothing was easily blown to smithereens. His abdomen had a bleeding wound and his squirming intestines were visible. Evil creature. The pirate chief snarled over and over as he cupped his gut. Whoosh. Numerous rays of black light were fired from the sea beast, who was hidden at bottom of the dark sea. Most of the black light was focused on the pirate chief. The sea beast could keenly sense that the pirate chief was its most life-threatening enemy. Ah! While the pirate chief was dodging in a flurry, his shoulder blade was pierced too. This evil creature's looking for death. The pirate chief fiercely glared at Suyu, who took advantage of the situation to get far away. As much as he hated it, he would have to take care of the sea beast first before chasing after Suyu again. Whoosh. Suyu swam like a fish. While the other two were fighting with each other, he immediately dived into the ruins of the divine ice ancient kingdom. Looking around, everything within 10 miles was in ruins. Modeled by the vicissitudes of life and densely scarred by time, each crumbling pillar and broken stone told the story of a catastrophic event from long ago. Who was the owner of the palm? Why were so many civilizations destroyed by him? Suyu was puzzled. Suddenly, a remnant of the palace greeted his eyes. Because of geographical causes, both sides of the building had borne the powerful force from that tremendous palm. The middle portion was able to escape mostly unharmed. So even though more than half of the building had collapsed, a small section remained. The Divine Ice Hall. Suyu's pupils dilated. Based on what those pirates had said, the Divine Ice Ancient Kingdom had a well-preserved and intact Divine Ice Hall, where the strong men of the Divine Ice Ancient Kingdom had once cultivated their techniques. Most of it was still here. Watched over by the sea beast for years, no one had entered. But the sea beast was currently held back by the pirate chief. Now was Suyu's chance. Whoosh. Without hesitation, Suyu dived into the Divine Ice Hall. Hissing. Suyu gasped the moment he entered. It was so cold. The divine ice threads had never made him cold, but this place, full of chill, made him shiver. Both the icy heart core and divine ice ring absorbed the chill. It was only thanks to them that Suyu was able to exist in this great hall. Here, even if the pirate chief were to rush in with his second-level Holy King ability, he would turn into an ice sculpture. Among all the dangers Suyu had faced, this palace was one of the worst. Suyu carefully moved forward to ensure that his icy heart core and divine ice ring could withstand the chill. In case he reached a spot where the chill was too cold and heavy, he could immediately retreat. It's not advisable to stay here for long. Suyu gazed around. Even if he had an ice-cold body, he still could not stay here for too long. The interior of the hall was destroyed. Everything had crumbled over time. Suddenly, Suyu caught a glimpse of something among the broken wall debris. Surprisingly, there were 3 well-preserved and intact corpses. They sat cross-legged in a circle. It appeared as if they were in the middle of a close discussion until the annihilating power of that divine palm before it extinguished their lives. After years of erosion, the three bodies were only left with pure white bones. All their clothing had eroded. There was nothing else on their bodies. Even if there were treasures before, they had also presumably eroded over time. Su Yu was secretly disappointed. Suddenly, he glimpsed from the corner of his eye several things sealed underneath a thin layer of ice within the sitting circle of the three bodies. That ice emitted an unprecedented chilliness. Su Yu only took one look and immediately felt a cold pain in his eyes. Hiss! What a terrible chill! Prior to their deaths, most of the ice was created by the three predecessors in a nick of time to protect the things within it. Therefore, they were able to avoid the years of erosion and had stayed preserved. Su Yu looked through the ice layer. He vaguely saw 2 volumes of cultivation techniques. Thump, thump. Su Yu's heart could not help but start beating wildly. They are legacy-level cultivation techniques. 2 complete volumes. At the Lixian faction, a remnant volume of a legacy-level cultivation technique was considered extremely rare. Many of the holy kings did not get the chance to hold one. The powerful 100 vassal clans did not even have a remnant volume of a legacy-level cultivation technique. Here, there were 2 complete volumes of legacy-level cultivation techniques. Based on what Su Yu knew, only those who were in the powerful, upper tiers of the dragon realm were able to cultivate a complete volume of a legacy-level cultivation technique. And often, only those of the elder rank were qualified to read through the complete legacy-level cultivation technique. Similarly, strong individuals like the Hall Masters and core disciples of the lower dragon realms could still cultivate the remnant volumes. How could Su Yu not be tempted? Upon closer examination, the 2 volumes of legacy-level cultivation techniques were still fully in use. It looked like, at that time, these 3 people were cultivating together and discussing their experiences. When faced with their deaths, they had used a protection cultivation technique to seal and freeze the books. Thump, thump. Even with Su Yu's calm nature, it was still hard to refrain from the excitement within. Breathing deeply, Su Yu suppressed the impulse to break the frozen seal and take the cultivation techniques. The cultivation techniques had only survived until now thanks to the ice seal. If he shattered the ice, they could shatter along with it. So, Su Yu could only stay here and memorize them on the spot. Space-time manipulation. With 200 times the speed of time, Su Yu penetrated the frozen seal and stared hard to memorize. Su Yu spent 10 hours fully memorizing the 2 volumes of the legacy-level cultivation techniques. Both his eyes, due to the long period of staring at the frozen seal, were unexpectedly frozen. By using the icy heart core and divine ice ring, he was able to absorb the chill with great efforts. Though he was able to gradually alleviate the freezing, there was still a faint stinging sensation which hurt his eyes and made it difficult to keep them open. Even so, Su Yu's face was brimming with indescribable delight. One of the cultivation techniques was a movement technique, known as Icy Divine Wings. It was divided into 3 stages, with each stage divided into lower class, upper class, and top class. When each stage of the cultivation was complete, up to top class, the power of ice within the body of the user would take shape in the form of a pair of icy divine wings. They would be as fast as the speed of light, surpassing all. At every stage, the icy divine wings would have a different form. As one moved higher in each stage, the shape of the divine wings would become more extraordinary and refined. Legend had it that cultivating up to stage 3 top class could allow the user to transform the wings into a supernatural form. One would be able to cover 10,000 miles in a day and surpass any strong individuals of the dragon realm. Their speed was comparable to that of a celestial immortal. Su Yu was excited. Floating light shadow was quickly becoming too slow for Su Yu, otherwise, he would not have been pursued by the pirate chief. Icy Divine Wings had arrived just on time. The second volume was Sigh of Ice, an extremely rare and excellent legacy-level cultivation technique which could amplify one's spiritual energy. The whole Lixian faction only had one remnant legacy-level volume, the 1000-thread mantra, and here, right before his eyes, was a complete volume of Sigh of Ice. Sigh of Ice was also divided into 3 stages. Every stage could increase the body's spiritual energy by 1-fold. After the stage 3 top class, one's spiritual energy would be 3 times more powerful than another person from the same realm. 1000-thread mantra could, at most, amplify energy by only 1-fold. Sigh of Ice's effect was wholly 3 times more powerful than 1000-thread mantras. Su Yu read the cultivation requirements. This is only suitable for martial artists with ice-based cultivation experience, and it is to be combined with cold air for faster cultivation. To be combined with cold air. Su Yu closed his eyes. Suddenly, he darted toward the strange and terrifyingly frozen seal. The cold air, created by the 3 predecessors before their deaths, contained a chill that surpassed any cold that Su Yu had encountered in his life. If he could make use of it to cultivate. Boom. He, you little piece of crap. So, this is where you are. A nasty laugh suddenly came from behind. Su Yu abruptly stiffened. When he looked back, his heart sank. The pirate chief was badly mangled. His right shoulder and what was left of his right arm was a mangled mess of blood and bone. The flesh on his torso, shoulder blade, and chin were all gone. His right eye was ruined by the black rays, only a dark hole dripping blood remained. His remaining left eye was bursting with murderous rage. I want you dead. The pirate chief's incomparable rancor and hatred were as deep as the sea. Having lost his lower lip, he let out a terrible roar as blood sprayed everywhere. Swish. Crack. The moment he entered the palace, the fierce cold froze both of his feet. Su Yu could barely survive with the double absorption of his icy heart core and divine ice ring. How was the pirate chief able to use his physical body to enter? The chief growled, "Scram!" His body was ablaze with flames which expelled the chill. He went as far as to disregard his own life as he forcibly depleted his spiritual energy to move into the hall. Although it was extremely difficult to take each step, his murderous rage drove him to kill Su Yu at any cost. His fury pushed him forward. As his heart shrank and trembled, Su Yu felt his killing intent. The pirate chief was persistent, like an aggrieved ghost who would not rest in peace until he killed Su Yu. I want you dead, the pirate chief bellowed venomously as he took 2 more steps forward. What should Su Yu do? Su Yu did not have any power to fight back, he would be killed on the spot. A second-level Holy King would crush him. It was a life-or-death crisis, his life was in danger. At the last second, Su Yu's eyes embodied a decisive look, I'll fight back. If he failed, then today's sea burial would reduce him to a bag of bleached bones. If he was successful, like a fish becoming a dragon, he would break through the shackles of martial arts and be transformed into a holy king. With a rumble in his heart, Su Yu turned around and placed his palm on top of the frozen seal. At the same time, he swiftly activated Sigh of Ice and frantically swallowed the cold air. If he was successful, Su Yu could break through to become a holy king. However, the frozen seal was made of exceptional ice. It suddenly invaded Su Yu's limbs and bones. Almost instantaneously, Su Yu was transformed into an ice sculpture from inside out. His breath was extinguished on the spot. The pirate chief gasped, "What a scary chill." He went numb. Even his breath was taken by the cold. Gazing at the dead Su Yu, the pirate chief sneered bitterly, "I had thought you would die in my hands, but instead you died in the hands of the ice you love so dearly." The pirate chief slowly turned around to leave. He sneered without turning back, "Worthless insect, the one who's forever buried in the sea, is you." However, he had not taken a single step when he heard a strange sound. Thump. It sounded like the trembling beat of a drum. Thump, thump. It rumbled like a roll of thunder in the summer rain. Thump, thump, thump. In a split second, it sounded like a magnificent army of thousands of men and horses, marching and stamping through 10,000 miles of rivers and mountains, had arrived. Thump, 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 thump. The silent seabed suddenly trembled with the sounds of howling winds and torrential rain. That was the sound of a beating heart. Looking back with a stiff expression, the pirate chief's pupils contracted. There was an ice-cold heart rapidly beating in Su Yu's chest. It looked as if it was going to jump out of him. Su Yu began to fully absorb the surrounding chill as if he was a whale swallowing krill. Just like the powerful vitality of a caterpillar breaking its cocoon to be reborn and transformed into a fluttering butterfly, Su Yu slowly opened his eyes and shook the ice encasing him. The Divine Nine-Dragon Cauldron. Chapter 113. Breakthrough to Holy King. Boom. The iceberg shattered into small pieces as the cracks increasingly spread out like cobwebs. A sense of foreboding slowly filled the air. He has broken through. To Holy King. The pirate chief gasped. How could he have broken through so quickly? The pirate chief was extremely startled. The difference between half Holy King and Holy King is great. He needs to be able to absorb a lot of spiritual energy. Under ordinary circumstances, a half Holy King requires 6 months to absorb enough spiritual energy to become a Holy King, but how did Su Yu absorb so much spiritual energy in such a short time? Exhale. A vortex of seawater swirled around Su Yu's head and the abundant spiritual energy filled his veins. It's a legacy-level cultivation technique used to amplify his spiritual energy. And it's an excellent legacy-level cultivation technique. The pirate chief's pupils contracted. Finally, he saw the 2 volumes of legacy-level cultivation techniques within the frozen seal. What? There are 2 complete volumes of legacy-level cultivation techniques. The pirate chief was astonished. He looked ecstatic. Excellent. This is truly a big surprise. When I hand them over to the Imperial Court, I'm bound to receive many generous rewards. The pirate chief finally understood why Su Yu had such a rapid breakthrough to the Holy King level. When it was combined with the cold air, Sigh of Ice's activation speed became incredibly fast. Consequently, an ordinary half-Holy King, who required 6 months of step-by-step progress, could achieve Holy King, as Su Yu had, in an instant. Any moment from now, Su Yu would become a Holy King and his power would skyrocket. The pirate chief smirked. Too bad, I won't let you get what you want. Boom. The pirate chief walked over step by step with much difficulty. Crack. There were more and more cracks in the iceberg. Su Yu's Holy King force was strengthening. Bang. Crack. 2 types of sounds reverberated through the cold, silent sea, both urgent and abrupt. The sea water surged and the cold air furled. The entire sea seemed to be following the rushing undulation of the 2 alternating sounds. Whoever reached his goal first would have a new lease on life again. If the pirate chief reached Su Yu first, he would destroy him. If Su Yu finished cultivating first, the pirate chief was done for. Bam. Crack. Bam. Crack. The situation was progressing rapidly. The distance between the 2 men was only 10 feet. The pirate chief's evil smoke deepened. He was getting closer. Death was getting stronger. He walked, step by step until they were nearly 1 foot apart. The pirate chief would be able to kill him at this range. Su Yu, I've won. The pirate chief's mouth cracked into a huge evil smile as he extended 1 finger. In the name of the Empire of Darkness, I grant you the doom of darkness. Aha! A tongue of flame pointed straight at Su Yu, who was inside the ice. His fate finally came to an end. At the last moment of Su Yu's metamorphosis, he encountered the exceptional killing force of the Empire of Darkness. Boom. The iceberg shattered as if it were made of paper. In a flash, shards scattered everywhere. However, within the broken iceberg, a pair of violet eyes suddenly opened. Su Yu had awoken from his metamorphosis, powerful and imposing. His Holy King force was overwhelming. He was like a dragon leaping to the highest of heavens and breaking apart the shackles of the world. I, Su Yu, have finally stepped into the Holy King realm. With his silver hair fluttering in purple clothing, Su Yu had a new lease on life. His mortal body had broken the chains of mortality and he had become a Holy King. His consciousness and appearance looked completely new, as if he had shed his mortal body and changed his bones. With his handsome features and extraordinary vigor, he became an even more extraordinarily handsome man from the heavens. His eyes, deep as the galaxy, were suffused with such bright brilliance that it was hard to look straight into his gaze. Su Yu was finally reborn. With a completely new attitude and the elegance of a holy king, he was finally able to stand proudly. Aha! The attacking flame, unbothered by the seawater, stirred the currents. Su Yu's deep and calm eyes were revealed underneath his flowing silver hair. Everything's over, Su Yu said calmly, while he gently extended his palm and slightly flexed his hand. Sputter. Su Yu extinguished the terrible flame with just his palm. The pirate chief's face suddenly changed. How? You just had your breakthrough to the first level lower tier holy king. How could you already have the spiritual energy of a first level upper tier holy king? Suddenly, he gasped, did you already comprehend a little bit of Sigh of Ice? Is your spiritual energy amplified? He was quivering deep inside. Su Yu had actually comprehended a legacy-level cultivation technique in such a short time. Such powerful insight was inhuman. You do not need to know. Su Yu's expression was indifferent. A beautiful violet lotus appeared in the palm of his hand. Exquisite and alluring, it spun gently. Destroy, Su Yu commanded. Boom. With a tremendous sound, the seawater shot straight up to the sky from the depths of the sea. The divine ice hall trembled and shook before it came rumbling down. Boom. The pirate chief was aghast. He coughed up blood and had been thrown backward during the frightening explosion. His fight with the sea beast had seriously injured his body, and his physical strength was less than a third of his peak condition. He was barely comparable to a first-level peak holy king. The formidable power of Purple Star Thunderbolt, after being suffused with the intense spiritual energy, had exponentially increased by a few levels. After his breakthrough to the Holy King realm, Su Yu was even more formidable. Whoosh! Without any hesitation, the pirate chief immediately fled. Are you running away? Su Yu glanced back. More than 90% of the chill in the frozen seal had already been absorbed by Su Yu. Only a weak layer was left, and it was shattered by the surging seawater. The cultivation techniques, which had been sealed for countless years, turned into dust and scattered. Thank you, my 3 seniors, for your grace, Su Yu bowed in respect. If they had not protected those techniques before their deaths, Su Yu would have been buried in the sea by now. When he got up, he gazed afar at the fleeing pirate chief and his eyes turned icy. It's my turn to kill you now. Swoosh. After he broke through to the Holy King level, his speed had skyrocketed. The pirate chief was also badly wounded. He was far from peak condition. The 2 men streaked across the sky, a hunter and his prey. Purple Star Thunderbolt. Boom. Ah. What was left of the pirate chief's right arm was blown off. He screamed in agony. Su Yu, we can talk things over, there's no need for you to be so persistent in your pursuit to kill me. He begged. You never gave me a chance to talk things over, why should I be charitable to you? Su Yu's expression was calm and indifferent. He had been hunted by this person, how could he forgive him? The pirate chief looked distressed and remorseful. He clenched his teeth, held his seriously injured body together, and fled across the sea. Countless sea beasts looked on in alarm at a purple-clad man who leaped across thousands of miles of territorial waters so as to chase and kill the fearsome sea wolves pirates chief. That silver-haired, purple-clad figure was like a supreme king. After half a day of pursuit, Su Yu finally caught up to the pirate chief. Ah, I'm going to take you down with me. The pirate chief had gone to great lengths to escape and there was still no way out. He now only wished to bring Su Yu with him in death. Su Yu looked indifferent. You're not even qualified to take me down with you. The sparkling violet lotus rotated in his palm and floated down. The thunder suddenly rolled, startling the heavens far away. Ah! A blood-curdling screech echoed through the skies. The pirate chief's chest exploded. His eyes, which had a reluctant look, became empty and lifeless. A second-level holy king of his generation and a silver-robed guard of the Empire of Darkness thus fell. Su Yu was apathetic. He just took the jade token from his waist, as well as the legacy-level cultivation technique volume. 5 Dragon Blaze was a top-notch legacy-level cultivation technique. It was a remnant volume and contained up to 2 stages. Su Yu thought back about this cultivation technique with its intense flame. The flame was resistant to water and ice, the power was clearly extraordinary. Su Yu coveted it, but after pondering for a long while, he suppressed his desire. He was unsuited for any fire-based cultivation techniques. If he forced this cultivation, it would only be harmful to him. But it was precious without a doubt. If he were to hand it over to the 100 vassal clans, they would most likely agree to any of his wishes. With a flash in his eyes, Su Yu left immediately to seek a secluded island reef so that he could sit and cultivate. Since he had just entered the Holy King realm, he needed to urgently consolidate his strength. And, after absorbing a lot of cold air, he needed to comprehend the ice-based techniques a little more. Taking this opportunity, he had to seize the time to comprehend the remnant volume of glazed ice flame, and the complete volumes of icy divine wings and sigh of ice. There was also Purple Star Thunderbolt. He only needed one last bit of comprehension to reach top class. With his holy decree still only saint grade, he wanted to push just the small bit further to get it into the next realm. During his seclusion, a drastic change occurred within 1,000 square oceanic miles. A few days later, 3 strong individuals from the Lixian faction appeared next to the body of the pirate chief. One of them was the deputy clan master of the External Affairs Division, Qin Gang. His ability was of a level 4 Holy King. Behind him were 2 cold-faced men clad in black. Their abilities reached the level 3 Holy King. They were the law enforcement disciples of the Law Enforcement Tribunal. Qin Gang looked baffled. What do you think? The law enforcement disciples also looked shocked. The identity of this body is, without a doubt, our target, the Sea Wolves pirate chief. A second-level lower-tier Holy King. The law enforcement disciple on the left declared. However, they all knew that his identity was not the important point. The crucial point was that he had been slain. It looks like he was hunted to exhaustion, defeated, and killed. Another law enforcement disciple said with a slightly shaken voice. Qin Gang was very grave. Rumors said that he had cultivated a powerful legacy-level cultivation technique. An ordinary level 2 Holy King could not even kill him. And yet, he was hunted and killed. How fearsome is his killer's ability? The 2 law enforcement disciples were deeply awed by the mention of a legacy-level cultivation technique. Even though they were level 3 Holy Kings, they never had the opportunity to encounter a legacy-level cultivation technique before. Only a few months ago, Qin Gang had managed to receive Han Ji's favor through Xuanhuan, and was lucky enough to read through a legacy-level cultivation technique. Yet here, such a powerful pirate chief was actually being hunted to death. Who was this deity that had hunted him down? Qin Gang pondered for a moment before he issued his order. We will bring back his corpse and hand it over to the faction to verify his background. Ha! You robbed us of our Lixian faction disciples and now you're dead. The 2 law enforcement disciples immediately preserved the body. Deputy Clan Master Qin, where is Clan Master Shi? Besides Su Yu and Lu Guang, we have summoned all the other disciples. It's time for us to return to the faction. We will go to that island and wait quietly. Clan Master Shi has another important matter, Qin Gang said calmly. Somewhere in the open sea, with her delicate body sparkling against the waters, Xuanhuan's pale hand suddenly caught something in the water, like a dragonfly lightly touching a ripple. A fish appeared in her pale hand. Flexing her fingers, the fish spat out a jade pendant from its mouth. Xuanhuan's hand grasped the jade pendant and her pretty eyes had a slightly frosty look. You took precautions in advance and put the jade pendant into the belly of a fish to guard against me killing you. How cunning. You wasted so much of my time. If Su Yu was here, he would rejoice in his foresight. Otherwise, he would have perhaps encountered Xuanhuan alone in the uninhabited sea. The outcome could have been bad. No one would have been able to help him. Are you dead, or are you fleeing for your life? Xuanhuan whispered. Little could she imagine that, within some island reef, a huge expanse of ice had emerged. A formidable, icy power, accompanied by a joyful whistling sound, solidified the entire island reef. The Divine Nine-Dragon Cauldron. Chapter 114. Expulsion from the faction. When they returned to the island for their assembly, Shi Ruolan glanced around at Wu Pangyun, Yunyan, and the others. The mission of this trip has ended due to all your hard work. After our return, the faction will evaluate and reward you based on merit. The rewards will correspond with how many pirates you have killed. Let's set out and return to the faction. Yunyan looked around with an anxious expression. Please wait. Su Yu has not returned yet. Humph. Serves him right to die here. Wu Pangyun sneered as he recalled how Su Yu and Yunyan had abandoned him. He was still harboring a grudge. A shameless person like you should be the one damned to die here. During that moment of crisis, when you so kindly helped me with that palm of yours. Yunyan, will absolutely not take it lying down. Yunyan said angrily. While trying to break out of a siege, Wu Pangyun had behaved despicably and shamelessly. He caused her to fall into the hands of a first-level holy king and she was almost dishonored. Were it not for the arrival of Su Yu, she would have been greatly humiliated by the pirates and killed. Upon hearing her words, Wu Pangyun's face slightly froze and he looked evasive. Princess Yunyan's betrothed was a strong man from the inner sanctum. What would he do when he learned what Wu Pangyun had done? Whether he's alive or dead, if he fails to assemble here on time, he will be deemed a failure. We'll set out now, Shi Ruolan said callously. Wow. An enormous bird with outstretched wings came in a flurry and soared to the sky. Yunyan blamed herself as she worried about Su Yu. Was he still alive? Suddenly, from the corner of her eye, Yunyan saw a flashing purple figure in the distant clouds. Like a ball of crystal light, his speed was astoundingly fast. It's Su Yu. Although the figure could not be seen clearly yet, Yunyan's intuition told her it was Su Yu. What? Everyone looked in disbelief. The two law enforcement disciples looked surprised. Such fast speed. It's as fast as a second-level holy king. Qin Gang's eyes gradually narrowed. He actually broke through to the holy king level. Wu Pangyun's face instantly turned ugly. He gnashed his teeth. Not only is he alive, but he's a holy king too. When Su Yu was still a half-holy king, he and Wu Pangyun were on equal ground. But now that Su Yu was a holy king, would Wu Pangyun possibly fall even further behind? Yunyan's jade-like face was filled with delight. Whoosh! The silver-haired, purple-clad man gradually caught up with them. It was indeed Su Yu. His natural manner was like that of an ordinary youth. A pair of solidified ice-cold wings silently fanned out behind him. They were like a pair of swan wings, with clear feathers and distinct meridians. They were vivid and lifelike. Their entirety was composed of sparkling clear ice, transparent and free of impurities. They were beautiful. This was the first formation of the icy divine wings. Shi Ruolan's clear, cold eyes looked stunned. Not only was Su Yu not dead, but he had also broken through to the holy king level. Furthermore, he had obtained a legacy-level cultivation technique. Shi Ruolan no longer had any excuse to refuse him, so she coldly snarled, "Come up." Whoosh! Su Yu gracefully landed and stood. His flying wings retracted back into his body. Not a hint of his true power was revealed, but, unknowingly, all the disciples, including Wu Pangyun, could sense a king-like power from him. Princess Yunyan smiled. Looks like you will be able to find your beloved woman on your own now. Su Yu cupped his fists and smiled. Thank you. Su Yu had been transformed inside out. His features were even more handsome, unlike any mortal men. His deep, starry eyes enhanced his looks. Yunyan was slightly dazzled by just looking at him. Once she collected herself, her charming face was slightly red. As she recalled their 5 days at the island reef, she suddenly felt her heart swell and she smiled. Half a day later, they were back at the faction. At the External Affairs Division, the group of disciples was being evaluated and rewarded for their efforts. Wu Pangyun struck and killed a first-level lower-tier Holy King bandit, so his reward is 1 piece of low-grade marrow-cleansing elixir. Yunyan killed and beheaded 3 half-holy kings, therefore her reward is 3 pieces of divine-grade spirit elixirs. For the rest of the participants, this mission is your reward. Shiruolan stated indifferently. In fact, only Wu Pangyun and a couple of others received their reward. The other disciples were just secretly thankful that they were still alive. Wait. Su Yu lightly glanced at Shiruolan. As you mentioned before, if 100 points were attained, you would fulfill 3 requests. Don't tell me that doesn't count. Shiruolan's lips curled into a cynical sneer. You've attained 100 points. The rewards for this mission were there to motivate their participation. It was inconceivable that someone would pass. That was impossible even for Wu Pangyun. With his ability, he was considered lucky to have killed and beheaded 4 first-level lower-tier holy kings and gained 40 points. He had then miraculously killed a first-level upper-tier holy king and gained another 20 points. After stacking it all up, he only had 60 points. Their only function had been to act as bait, to begin with. Bang! Su Yu took out more than 10 jade tokens in one shot, stunning everyone. Running through the list, 10 half-holy kings. 5 first-level lower-tier holy kings. 1 first-level upper-tier holy king. 1 first-level peak holy king. It was a total of 110 points. Swish. Shiruolan and Keen Gang swiftly got up and attentively verified his points. After confirming that it was indeed the Sea Wolves pirate chief's personal jade token, it was hard for them to conceal their astonishment. All the disciples gasped, and they felt numb with fear. What? He actually killed and beheaded 7 holy kings. And among them, there was even a first-level upper-tier holy king in addition to a terrifying first-level peak holy king. Everyone looked at Su Yu like they were looking at a monster. If all the ones he had killed and beheaded were half-holy kings, they could understand, but half of those he'd killed and beheaded were extremely formidable holy kings. Yunyan closed her red lips and found it difficult to cover up her shock. The first-level peak holy king who had hunted Su Yu had died at his hand. A powerful sense of invincibility bubbled up within her. Shiruolan's eyes flickered for a long time before gradually calming down. A total of 110 points does indeed meet the requirements. The first reward is a medium-grade marrow cleansing elixir and the second reward is an elder's guidance. Both can all be honored now, but only the third reward, entry to the inner sanctum, cannot be honored. The first 2 were still tolerably within limits, but entry to the inner sanctum was truly impermissible. The inner sanctum had strict entry requirements. Only true natural talent could enter. Su Yu was far from that level and thus had no qualification to enter. For the faction, those 3 rewards were just verbal pledges. They were never intended to be honored. But who could have imagined Su Yu would complete the impossible mission, so she could only force herself to honor those pledges that were easy enough to fulfill. I can't enter the inner sanctum. Why is that? Su Yu glowered. No reason. I said no means no, Shiruolan indifferently replied. The purpose of this mission was to completely wipe out the Sea Wolves pirates. There are still dozens of half-holy king pirates on the run. Strictly speaking, the mission is not completed, so the first 2 rewards should not even be honored. But seeing how you killed and beheaded so many pirates, and because you were getting rid of that scum for the greater good, we have no choice but to honor both rewards. Shiruolan spoke with conviction. Su Yu was indignant. You. Humph. If you still don't know what's good for you, the 2 rewards will be eliminated. Shiruolan said coldly. Fine. I will remember what happened today. Su Yu felt angry and resentful and sighed. The inner sanctum was this mission's biggest reward. Once he entered the inner sanctum, there would be endless resources and his cultivation would have unparalleled comprehension. Life outside of the sanctum was never-ending drudgery, there would be no opportunity and he had absolutely no way of standing out. Here's the medium-grade marrow cleansing elixir, take it. As for the second reward, which of the Elder's guidance do you want to have for one day? You can go now and request to see him. After you receive a reply, you can go pay your respects on time and listen to their guidance. Shiruolan casually threw Su Yu a piece of dark blue spirit elixir. Su Yu caught hold of it. I want to accept the second elder's guidance, he said without hesitation. This was the only opportunity to get close to the second elder. If he revealed his relationship with Li Guang, perhaps he might receive a bit of protection. The second elder, Chi Ruolan and Qin Gang both gave Su Yu a strange glance and they lightly nodded. That concluded the evaluation and rewards. Chi Ruolan gave Su Yu a cold glance and then looked around at everyone. She remained silent for a long while before quietly saying, "In addition, there's a matter to inform you all of. This is the faction's high-level decision and you are only fated to accept it." Everyone quickly became apprehensive. At the command of the faction, after you have finished your mission and when you have been dismissed, the faction promises you a small request. For example, you can receive a medium-grade marrow cleansing elixir. Chi Ruolan calmly relayed the shocking news. Wu Pangyun was taken aback. "Clan Master Shi, do you mean that the faction will expel me and the others? Why, we just acted as bait for the faction and suffered all kinds of wrong. Why are you still expelling us?" Yun Yan shivered and found it hard to accept this piece of news. It had come from nowhere. Su Yu looked shaken. He even suspected Chi Ruolan of falsely passing on a command from the faction. But, after calmly thinking it through, Su Yu scowled. "This is the faction's command, we don't have to have a reason. Just state your requests and the faction will try to fulfill them," said Chi Ruolan without any expression. Many people felt deeply angry, wronged, and baffled. Su Yu sighed. "It's precisely because you feel wrong that the faction will not keep you. Just imagine, a group of disciples, ruthlessly used as bait by the faction. How could they not be resentful? Such a person's loyalty to the faction would be difficult to compare with an ordinary disciple's. If they entered the faction's inner sanctum while harboring grudges, they could secretly wreck and vilify the faction. It was just too risky for the faction. The best way to deal with them was to compensate them and send them home." To be fair, when they compared a dull fate outside of the faction to a medium-grade marrow cleansing elixir, the latter was more attractive. The Lixian faction considered this as generous. Seeing how Chi Ruolan looked firm and resolute, a lot of the half-holy kings gnashed their teeth and finally nodded. "Then I want a medium-grade marrow cleansing elixir." For a half-holy king, ingesting a medium-grade marrow cleansing elixir would greatly increase the probability of a breakthrough into the holy king level. The majority of the family clans did all not have a medium-grade marrow cleansing elixir. Seeing how they could now get one, they did not feel so wronged. "Me too. And me too." In the blink of an eye, 25 people agreed. Only Su Yu, Princess Yun Yan, and Wu Pangyun were left. "How about you all?" Chi Ruolan asked plainly. Wu Pangyun clenched his teeth. "I do not want to go. I still hope to enter the inner sanctum." For a 15-year-old first-level upper-tier holy king, he had the right to hope to enter the inner sanctum. Chi Ruolan then glanced at Princess Yun Yan. "How about you? Do you also want to enter the inner sanctum?" 18 years old and only a first-level lower-tier holy king, her qualifications were far weaker than Wu Pangyun, so there was no hope for her to enter the inner sanctum. Slightly biting her red lips, Princess Yun Yan shook her head. "If I choose to leave, can I request to borrow a legacy-level cultivation technique volume from inside the depository of Buddhist scriptures, for a look?" Chi Ruolan's face abruptly turned cold. "Humph. Your purpose in entering the Lixian faction is for your family clan to obtain a legacy-level cultivation technique. You know this, and the faction also knows. You're still far from being qualified to read through a legacy-level cultivation technique." Yun Yan felt like she was stabbed in her heart. Her face blushed and she lowered her head without speaking. "And you, Su Yu, after receiving a medium-grade marrow cleansing elixir in your day of guidance from an elder, you must also leave the faction. No one can defy the command of the faction." A slight smear could be glimpsed at the corner of her mouth. Su Yu would still be expelled from the faction in the end. Su Yu answered without hesitation, "I want to stay at the faction." Yun Yan bit her lip and looked determined. "I too want to stay." Only by staying and performing meritorious deeds for the faction could it then be possible for her to attain a legacy-level cultivation technique for her family clan. Even if she lived outside of the inner sanctum and suffered hardships, she would do it without hesitation. Wu Pangyun also stepped forward, and me too. I, Wu Pangyun, cannot be a nobody my whole life. Shi Ruolan, without changing her expression, sniffed, this is the faction's command. You three do not even have a say in this. You can only obey when I tell you to leave. Su Yu laughed angrily, so this is the Lixian faction. After making use of your disciples, you just bestow a little reward and kick 'em out. Such generosity. Humph. One more pesky word and you'll be killed. Shi Ruolan's killing intent suddenly appeared. She wanted to seize this opportunity to eliminate Su Yu. Su Yu was boiling in anger. He had entered the Lixian faction with great difficulty, and despite everything, he had to give up on this great opportunity. Did you say our Lixian faction doesn't have the magnanimity? How dare you? If you're looking to die, I'll grant you your wish. A chilly sound suddenly rang out behind Su Yu. Su Yu was startled, who had stalked up behind him without alerting him. Even Shi Ruolan in front of him was unaware. That meant this person's speed transcended Shi Ruolan's vision. Second Elder. I pay my respects to you, Second Elder. Qin Gang was scared out of his wits and he knelt on the spot. Shi Ruolan also looked startled and bowed hurriedly, Second Elder. Su Yu looked back and saw a disfigured face. It was scary and intimidating. He could feel his heart sink. This was the Second Elder, the same disfigured woman from the entrance of the depository of Buddhist scriptures. Su Yu had been rude to her on that day. With the hideous face looking straight at him, Su Yu's heart completely sank down to his toes. He had offended the Second Elder. He had completely missed out on a great opportunity at the Lixian faction. But would he survive it all? Please support us to enjoy the advanced chapters. The Divine Nine Dragon Cauldron. Chapter 115. A Bolt from the Blue. Su Yu was indignant. That's right. So what if I did? Did I ever say the wrong thing? Su Yu sneered and spoke bluntly. If your Lixian faction had magnanimity, how could you exploit ignorant and unaware disciples and put our lives in danger? If there was magnanimity, why would you be so worried expelling us? If there was magnanimity, you, a stately elder, how could you not even allow someone to speak the truth? Shi Ruolan and Qin Gang were secretly startled. This child was truly arrogant and had an exaggerated ego. An elder-ranked figure was paramount in the Lixian faction. Though the Second Elder had come in person, in reality, the likes of Shi Ruolan and Qin Gang might not even have the chance to see an elder once a year. Besides the well-known Han Ji, the remaining 9 elders were elusive and mysterious. It was tricky for inconsequential people to even catch a glimpse of their real appearances. Shi Ruolan found it hard to understand. Here was the disciple who had clearly asked for the Second Elder, wanting her guidance for a day. This was why, with her exalted status, she would go as far to come in person. However, not only had Su Yu become angry at her presence, but he had talked back to the Second Elder. Of the 10 great Supreme Elders, the Second Elder was temperamental and of a disagreeable nature. Even the faction master was afraid of her to some degree. Su Yu's words were going to bring about his own destruction. The Second Elder was dumbfounded for a moment and immediately felt insulted and angry. Her ugly face twisted and she rolled her eyes while she huffed. Boy, do you think, in my capacity as an elder, a lofty rank, I will not lower my status to personally dispose of you? This hint of killing intent was like an icy arrow. It stung Su Yu's heart. Su Yu smiled sadly. You are an elder. Because I contradicted you at the depository of Buddhist scriptures, you sought me out. Killing me here would not shock anyone. He could not understand how he had offended the Second Elder. Was it because he merely did not know her identity, or because he had rashly asked the question about the depository of Buddhist scriptures? The Second Elder's killing intent deepened. She extended her finger and pointed it towards Su Yu. Su Yu subconsciously wanted to evade but was shocked to find out that, with her one gesture, his body had become stiff. His body's spiritual energy and his inner strength force could not be mobilized, he was paralyzed. What type of profound and mysterious realm was the faction's elder power in? Su Yu instantly felt like he was an insignificant human being looking up at the endless skies. The gulf between the second elders and his abilities was like heaven and earth. Thump. Her icy finger pointed at Su Yu between his eyebrows. The second elder's eyes held a chill as she sneered. Correct. I never consider my status when it comes to killing people. I don't care what other people think. Powerful vital energy traveled through her finger and shattered Su Yu's mind. Su Yu felt bitter. It had not been easy to travel from Shenyu Island to Zhenlong Continent, and he finally had half a foot in the faction. Was this finally the end? If I were to die, who would avenge Li Guang's injustice? Who would take care of Xianna in the future? Will Qia Jingyu be heartbroken? Xianna, farewell. Su Yu's lips whispered and he smiled sadly. However, in that split second, her finger between his eyebrows froze and her powerful energy retracted from within him. Xianna. Keen Xianna. Su Yu was stunned. Why do you ask? Do you also want to retaliate against those around me? Who is she to you? If you don't answer, I'll first kill her and then wipe you out. The second elder viciously answered. Su Yu was enraged. You go too far. I'll kill her first. The second elder's murderous rage was on full display. Su Yu felt indignant, so this was Zhenlong Continent. The cruel reality was far beyond what happened at the Shenyu Island. He had thought that entering the Lixian faction would allow him to be at ease and cultivate in peace, but the reality was ice-cold and cruel. Xianna's and his lives and deaths were in her hands within an instant. She is my betrothed. I've come from Shenyu Island to seek her. Su Yu stared intently at the second elder. I can die, but she's innocent. If you dare to touch her, I, Su Yu, will haunt you and make your life miserable forever. The second elder slowly retracted her finger. Her eyes rolled back and flashed with mirth and derision. Betrothed. Yes. Su Yu was puzzled. Why had she given up killing him? What was the meaning of her mocking look? The second elder beamed. Then why do I hear that a young girl named Qin Xianna is about to have a big wedding with Han Ji's first disciple, Xuanhuan? Xuanhuan, the young man who had greeted them that day on Shenyu Island. His ability had reached the dragon realm. Su Yu was thunderstruck. How can this be? Xianna and Xuanhuan are having a big wedding. The second elder beamed even more. Yes. Han Ji was the matchmaker and Xianna's only relative, Zhu Rong, gave her blessing. They will have a big wedding, everyone inside and outside of the faction knows. Lub dub lub dub lub dub. Su Yu's heart was shaken, and he looked despondent. She. How can she marry Xuanhuan? Regaining his composure, his mind recalled Xianna's pure and lovely appearance and he shook his head. This was not Xianna's intention. Xianna's heart was pure and virtuous, loyal and faithful. She would never willingly marry Xuanhuan. It was Zhu Rong, that old dog. She had previously looked down on Su Yu and had thus betrothed Qin Xianna to Lu Guang. Now, she still despised Su Yu, so she had betrothed her to Xuanhuan. How many months until their big wedding? Su Yu's fingers dug into his flesh and his chest felt a heart-gripping pain. He had finally come to the Lixian faction after much difficulty, and all he got was such a disheartening situation. He needed more ability, more power. If Su Yu had an ability which no one dared challenge, would Zhu Rong still dare disregard Su Yu in order to engage Xianna off to outsiders? Before the wedding, Su Yu would have to feverishly enhance his ability so he could take Xianna away from the Lixian faction. Even if he were to disobey the faction, even if he were to be hunted and killed, even if he were to become enemies with everyone under heaven, he was going to take Xianna away. The world was big, surely they could find a place where they could fit in. It would be no big deal for the two of them to roam far and wide together. A few months. The second elder's mocking tone became even more pronounced. The wedding will be in 5 days' time. What? In 5 days? Su Yu, as if struck by lightning, started to tremble. Xianna only entered the faction no more than a few days ago. How could she marry someone with such haste? Hee hee, how sad, your intended is marrying another man. You poor thing. The second elder shook her head in pity and added sarcastically, you're a pitiful creature. I, as an elder, feel it's not worth it to dispose of you. I would rather watch you pathetically live your life on the lowest rung of the world. I love that disheartened look on your face. The second elder's face flushed with the pleasure of revenge. She was anticipating a good show. Xiana. Su Yu's eyes were racked with grief. Whoosh. Darting out of the External Affairs Division, Su Yu charged straight into the inner sanctum. There was no time left. It was too late. He would have to take Xiana away now. Whoosh. He rushed to the boundary of the inner sanctum. The inner sanctum was heavily guarded. Without a pass it was impossible to enter. Even if Shiruolan, the clan master, was at the door and the inner sanctum's elders had not summoned her, she would not be qualified to enter the inner sanctum. The Liaxian faction was composed of 18 floating, fallen stars. 17 of those small, fallen stars revolved around an enormous fallen star in the center. It was as if all the stars had aligned themselves around the sun. They honored it from all directions. That was the legendary inner sanctum. In between the area of the inner sanctum's fallen star and the other 17 fallen stars, there was a powerful matrix. One could not pass through it by flying. There was only one way to enter, via a long iron bridge. Swish. Su Yu arrived before the iron bridge and anxiously rushed towards it. Boom. However, he had not yet arrived before a terrible force already attacked him. Su Yu's response was swift. He activated his spiritual energy and resisted with both arms. Pop. Lub dub lub dub lub dub. Su Yu sprayed out a mouthful of blood, groaned, and fell back. Looking over, a black armored guard was staring at Su Yu. With his hands behind his back, he stood before the iron bridge. His eyes were bright and full of expression. Any trespassers of the inner sanctum will be beheaded according to the law. Step away immediately. The middle-aged black armored guard coldly snapped. His ability had reached the terrible third-level Holy King level. Su Yu was raging inside. His grief and indignation were beyond compare. Not only could he not take Xiana away, he did not even have the right to enter the inner sanctum. Would he have to look on helplessly as Xiana was married to Xuanhuan in 5 days? Swish. At this time, Yunyan, who was worried about Su Yu, raced over. Su Yu. Yunyan reached out with her arms to support Su Yu and she took out a clean handkerchief to wipe the blood off the corners of Su Yu's mouth. Don't be like this. You can't just barge into the holy ground of the inner sanctum whenever you wish. Only those with inner sanctum status or those who receive summons can enter. Yunyan warily glanced at the black armor guard. Both of Su Yu's fists clenched and his fingers dug into his flesh until they drew blood. Su Yu's mind was in turmoil. He was so full of sadness and anger that physical pain no longer upset his nerves. He thought that since he had an unusual soul, he could set foot on the Zhenlong continent and strive for greatness. He had originally thought that when he became a holy king, there would be opportunities to further pursue his learning and improve, and he could reunite with Xiana. But the brutal fact was that Su Yu was too small and weak, like an ant. Knowing that his betrothed was being forced to marry someone else, he could not even cross the bridge to stand before her, let alone take her away. Su Yu's anguish and boundless anger shook his soul. The enormous shock to his spirit reverberated deep within him. In his mind, the divine nine-dragon cauldron, which perceived the violent change in Su Yu's mood, began to vibrate loudly. A red liquid came dripping down its side. This time, among the dragons that were carved inside the cauldron, a 10-inch long red dragon underwent a baptism of spirit serum, and an inch of solidified red crystal appeared. This scene was very similar to the crystallization of the violet dragon. Su Yu's ability deepened with every point of crystallization. The violet dragon represented the acceleration of time. What did the scarlet dragon represent? Su Yu did not have time to think. Like the first time the nine-dragon cauldron entered his mind, the violet dragon's baptism produced a heart-tearing, lung-splitting pain. Su Yu passed out on the spot. Before he passed out, he was aware of falling into a warm and fragrant embrace. When Suyu regained consciousness, half a day had already passed. The wedding was only 4.5 days away. Xiana. Suyu screamed as he suddenly opened his eyes. A soft pale hand gently stroked Suyu's head. A soft, sympathetic voice comforted him. Suyu, are you awake? Suyu focused and looked over at Princess Xuanhuan, who had been silently watching over him by his side while he was unconscious. Sorry, Suyu got up and apologized, but his mind was filled with images of Xiana. She was getting married. With his palms trembling, Suyu found it hard to suppress his inner lament. Gazing at the fallen star of the inner sanctum that was almost within reach, he felt even more sorrowful. It was plainly in front of him, and yet he did not have the right to cross the iron bridge. Could it be that, after he had gone through so many obstacles, he still had to bid farewell to Xiana? Suyu, don't be like this. Xuanhuan looked sympathetic. Like an older sister, she gently patted Suyu on his shoulder. In the matters of the world, there will always be powerlessness, where the weak are prey to the strong. We, the weak ones, can only comply. Once you understand this principle, you will be able to raise yourself above the struggle in the face of adversity. Forcing your way out of the current predicament is the only way to fail. Suyu's voice was choked with emotion. Unwilling to resign himself to his fate, he softly cried, I cannot accept it in my heart. Xiana. His voice quivered with helplessness and despair. To track down Xiana, he had gone from the Xianyu prefecture to the dangerous empire. He went from the empire into the sanctuary, where he did not hesitate to defy the Holy King. He had narrowly escaped death in the evil forest. His sole purpose was always to go to Fenguang Valley to meet Xiana. However, when he arrived at Fenguang Valley, Xiana was once again taken away, this time to the Zhenlong continent. When Suyu finally reached the Zhenlong continent after suffering many untold hardships, Xiana was unexpectedly engaged to marry someone else. Now, he did not even have the right to see her. He could only stand before this iron bridge and watch powerlessly as Xiana married another. He was like the world's most tragic, pitiful creature. He was of no use. Fate was so cruel, always fooling with the lives of others. After hearing Suyu's sorrowful roar, Xuanhuan's heart quivered. There was sympathy and agony deep within her pretty eyes. Even when he faced a strong enemy like the first-level peak Holy King, Suyu had never lost his composure. He was always calm and collected, his expression never changed, even if the mountain tie collapsed. But now, he was trembling. After a long, quiet while, Xuanhuan said with some hesitation, Suyu, if you want to enter the inner sanctum, there may be a way. It's just that, it's a massive long shot. End of the chapter. The Divine Nine Dragon will be read in 5 chapters for every Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday and Sunday. Please leave this sound novel and press subscribe, follow, and the bell so you don't miss any new clips as well. See you.